Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Thursday edition of the show, the last one of the week, and we're going to take a look at the entire NFC South draft class. We've covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a lot this past week, understandably so, with the draft last weekend. Overall, thought the Bucs did a pretty damn good job with filling a lot of needs on this team and really bulking up and adding depth at specific positions too. So we talked a lot about the Bucs. We're going to talk about the Panthers, the Falcons, and the Saints as well on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. I'm riding solo dolo once again. I apologize for those that are sick of my voice. We were supposed to have another guest on, but had a last-minute cancellation. So, as they say, the show must go on, and I am hosting live from my hotel room, where I am fairly close to a bodega. But we'll talk more about Celsius energy drinks in just a little bit. Want to say thank you to everybody watching the show this afternoon. We're going to talk a lot of the NFC South, but I think first it's important to discuss a little bit of news. Doesn't directly affect your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it is a former Buccaneer that we've talked a lot about over the past couple of months, and that is Donovan Smith. As Grace Point says, good evening, Matt. What up, Grace Point? Good to talk to you. Tom says, go Bucs as well. So this news broke a little bit after yesterday's show was done. Former Bucs left tackle Donovan Smith is going to, of all teams, the Kansas City Chiefs. I will put that article in the comments for everybody to check out if you haven't already read it. He signed a one-year deal that's up to $9 million. So that doesn't mean he's getting paid $9 million. It just means that with incentives and everything of that nature, Donovan can make up to that proper amount. Let me throw this in the comments real quick. And quite honestly, I'm happy for Donovan Smith. He's had his ups and downs in Tampa Bay. I think a lot of people were angry with him towards the end of his tenure with the Bucs, and then they obviously released him to save a chunk of money, and now we'll find out who's going to be the starting left tackle if Tristan Wirfs moves over. But you got to remember, Donovan Smith was at his best during the 2020 and the 2021 season. You know, maybe it was because Tom Brady was in town. Maybe it was the fact that the Bucs really for the first time in Donovan's career was a contender. And not just specifically Donovan. You could have said the same for Ali Marpet, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. So across the board, I'm not talking specifically about Donovan, but he gets to go to the Chiefs. We'll see if he ends up being a starter, if he's like the top backup on the board. But I think something about playing with the contender, playing on a great team, is a motivating factor for everybody, but especially Donovan Smith going into a new situation. And, you know, he had a lot of turmoil last year, a lot of personal turmoil, I should say, that I think really did affect his game. So maybe just going to a new area, wiping the slate clean, that can really start a new chapter for Donovan. And when you go to a great team with Patrick Mahomes as your starting quarterback, how could you not be excited about it? You know, I'm just very happy for him that he's going to stay in the league, go to a team that's contending. Donovan's a great guy. He's been on this show before, and we'll see what happens. Nathan Elliott says, D. Smith is going to be the end of Mahomes. I don't know. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has played through a lot of injuries over the past couple of years. Flash Gordon says, wow, the Chiefs had no other options. I'm shocked. Well, they let who was their offensive tackle? I believe it was Orlando Pace Jr. or Orlando Brown Jr. I always get it. I always get confused. But they let him walk in free agency, and so they needed to fill that role. They did sign Jawan Taylor, so the Chiefs did address that. But this is a great opportunity for Donovan Smith, as I keep saying. And it's so interesting to see the pipeline of former Buccaneers going to the Kansas City Chiefs. You had Justin Watson a couple of seasons ago. You had Mike Edwards this offseason, Blaine Gabbert this offseason, and now Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith becomes the latest Buccaneer to go over to Kansas City. I think he's going to love playing for Andy Reid. Andy's obviously a Hall of Fame coach. As Only Bucs fan says, Donovan doing TikToks with Jackson Mahomes. I'd stay away from Jackson Mahomes at the moment. He's in a bit of hot water. And then Nathan says, Donovan Smith is going to get hit with more holding calls because he will not be able to keep up with where Mahomes is at in or out of the pocket. Yeah, Nathan, also a good point. Ronald Jones is another one that was on the Chiefs. He's no longer there. I believe he signed in, I want to say the Texans now. Either the Texans or the Cowboys. I think he went back to the state of Texas where he's originally from. But yeah, a couple of Bucs on the move. And yeah, Patrick Mahomes does hold on to the ball, likes to make some crazy plays. So really it comes down to, will the Chiefs get the 2020 and 2021 version of Donovan Smith, or will they get 22, that version of Donovan Smith? Yeah, Lenny says that Rojo went to the Cowboys. That's I knew it was the state of Texas. I just could not remember which one it was specifically. And yeah, Donovan had a lot of costly holding penalties last year. And it seemed like they always happen on third down as well. And not just on third down, but in opportunities where the Bucs converted a 3rd and 7 or a 3rd and long. The couple times that the Bucs were able to convert those 3rd and longs, and then something would just rear its ugly head with Donovan. I just think you gotta have the Men in Black memory, just erase the memory from last year, wipe the slate clean, and we'll see what Donovan can do with the Kansas City Chiefs next year. But that's enough about Donovan Smith and former Buccaneers. We want to talk about the current Buccaneers and the rest of the NFC South, how that's going to affect your Buccaneers as they fight to win the division for the 3rd year in a row. Trifecta. And it's funny because the NFC South in general, I feel like over the years, whether Cam Newton was quarterback for the Panthers or Drew Brees, all the years that he was with New Orleans, and Matt Ryan obviously won an MVP with Atlanta, it seemed like year after year, there was a different leader in the NFC. Then the Saints kind of took a hold of it over the past couple of years before Tom Brady got to town. Even when Brady made it to Tampa, the Saints still won the division that year, and the Bucs got the wild card and ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, which obviously everyone will sign up for. But just a reminder, this was the Bucs draft class. We're missing... Oh, no, we got everyone there. There was one graphic that didn't have Jose Ramirez on it. But yeah, there's your Buccaneers draft class for the 2023 season. You had Kalijah Kancey out of Pitt in the 1st round. Cody Mock from North Dakota, the offensive lineman in round 2. Outside linebacker, Yaya Diaby out of Louisville. Bit of a reach a little bit in round 3, probably more of a round 4 type of player, but nonetheless, Bucs wanted an edge rusher. They wanted a quick guy with power, and that's why they went with Yaya Diaby. Savasie Dennis was the Bucs' 5th round pick, their first pick on day 3 because they did not have a 4th round pick. And he's got a good chance to be a key special teams player and then maybe be the successor to Devin White and or Levante David. Payne Durham out of Purdue, the tight end. He's going to make a nice 1-2 combination with Darius. I'm reading the comments as well. I'll make sure I get to everyone's comments. We're going to talk about the NFC South, but since it's just me hosting again, I'm happy to essentially do a Bucs Q&A. More than happy to do that with everybody. So get your super chats in, get any questions that you want. And I'm happy to answer them on today's show. We're going to make it all about the Pewter people. Darius Miller says, Matt with the Kendrick Lamar reference. Yeah, Darius, every single time I hear Yaya Diaby, that's really all I can think of. And Emily says, hi, Matt. Smith will probably do good there with the mobile QB. Yeah, the only knock on Donovan Smith really was that sometimes he would take plays off. So having someone like Mahomes doesn't really help that situation. But I think Donovan just likes working with greatness. And if the Chiefs get any semblance of what Donovan was in 2020 and 2021, that's a great signing for them. So getting back to the Bucs draft class, Payne Durham, tight end out of Purdue, round 6, a nickel defensive back, played safety at Kansas State. Josh Hayes, their second round 6 pick, was Nebraska wide receiver Trey Palmer, had 3 touchdowns of over 70 yards and longer on the season, and also had some kick return touchdowns, so going to compete with Devin Tompkins for that kick returner role. And, could fight to end up being wide receiver 4 and maybe even move to wide receiver 3, depending on what happens with Russell Gage. And then to round it out, Eastern Michigan outside linebacker Jose Ramirez. He was the last pick of the 6th round, the third 6th round pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Felix Schmidt says Kancey is the next Aaron Donald. That's what they're hoping for. I mean, obviously played at Pitt. Both had the same measurements of 6'1". Sorry, Warren Sapp had the same measurements as Kalijah Kancey, 6'1", 280. Aaron Donald was 1 pound more at 6'1", 281. So very close similarities. Obviously playing at Pittsburgh. Aaron Donald sent a message to Kalijah Kancey after he was drafted by the Bucs. So that's pretty cool to see. Pitt obviously has a great alumni of players that went on to the NFL and did really just an exceptional job. So I rounded up a couple of the draft grades of the Bucs and really all the NFC South in general. I looked at Pro Football Focus, which obviously is super helpful. Looked at PFF. I looked at Sports Illustrated and NFL.com. Tried to keep it to pretty well established programs and people that watch watch the draft, pay attention to it. I'll get to a couple comments. Richie P says, I've been hearing a few things that has led me to believe the Bucs wanted either Kalijah Kancey or Bijan Robinson. Have you heard anything crazy if true? The Bucs really like Bijan Robinson, but who didn't like Bijan Robinson? They've been attached in the past to. I know that they were huge fans of Jonathan Taylor as well when he was available in the draft a couple of years ago, and he ended up going to Indy. I think they liked Bijan Robinson, but in the situation that the Bucs were in, I don't even really think Bijan was a legitimate reality for the Bucs, even if he dropped to 19. There was just so many areas to address in the NFL draft for the Bucs, and they didn't even get to all of it. They didn't draft an offensive tackle, and you could have argued that offensive tackle was the number one priority. So Bijan would have been much more of a luxury pick, and it hurts a little bit knowing that they're going to have to see him twice a season when he goes to the Atlanta Falcons. We'll get to that in just a moment. Darius said PFF gave us an A-. Yes, they did. I was actually about to get into that article from Pro Football Focus. They gave the Bucs an A-, but that actually was the best grade out of the rest of the NFC South. The Panthers got a B+, the Falcons got a B+, and the Saints came in last with a B-. But real quick, we'll read briefly what PFF had to say about the Bucs. Talking about Elijah Kancey, he says he might be undersized, but Kancey is phenomenal as a pass rusher on the interior of the defensive line. His first step is elite. He's coming off a season where he led all players at the position with a 92.4 PFF pass rushing grade and should make an immediate impact as a pass rusher. The Buccaneers trade up with the Packers for Mauk, talking about day 2, after trading 2022 starting right guard Shaq Mason. Mauk played tackle in college and offers inside-outside versatility. He got a 91.1 grade from PFF that year. Bucs continue to add to the trenches with their third round pick with Yaya Diaby. He ranked in the 75th percentile among qualifying edge rushers in 2020. They go on to talk about Hayes and Palmer and Ramirez as well. Of course, Sarasier Dennis. But overall got an A-, so the highest grade out of the entire group. Like I said, Panthers got a B+, Falcons got a B+, Saints a B-. The other two draft classes that were graded, Sports Illustrated gave the Bucs a C+. They did not love what Tampa Bay did, but then NFL.com, Bucky Brooks gave them an A. So difference of opinions all over the place. For Sports Illustrated, the Panthers also got an A, the Falcons got a B, and the Saints got a B. So the Panthers had the best grade according to Sports Illustrated. And then for NFL.com, as I said, Bucs got an A, Panthers got a B, Falcons got an A minus, and the Saints got a B plus. So you really look at all of it, and Bucs, when you round it out, had the best grade out of most of their NFC South rivals. We'll talk about the Panthers draft class in just a moment. Richie says, good grade and accurate, in my opinion. Felix Schmidt says, Chris Sims had Sean Tucker as his RB4. Yeah, that was actually something I wanted to talk about as well. We had an episode on Tuesday where we discussed the Bucs undrafted free agents, and I was saying that Sean Tucker is the headliner of this undrafted free agent draft class. You can make the case for Tennessee linebacker Jeremy Banks as well. But yeah, Chris Sims had him ranked pretty high. A couple of other draft pundits had Sean Tucker in their top 10 of running backs as well. So cool to see the Bucs pick up such a gem with Sean Tucker. We'll see what damage he could do. I personally think that he can not only make this team, but work all his way up to running back too and kind of spell Rachaad White when he has some of those opportunities. So really like the signing of Sean Tucker. He's all business as well. I said this the other day. He's kind of got a Kawhi Leonard type of personality, just very direct when he answers questions, which is totally fine. You know, as long as you're focused on winning, that's kind of really all that matters to Bucs fans. So let's talk about the Carolina Panthers draft as we look through it. With their first pick, they obviously went with Bryce Young out of Alabama. In round 2, they got Bryce Young, the wide receiver Jonathan Mingo. Round 3, linebacker DJ Johnson. That one didn't necessarily love that pick. We'll see what PFF has to say about it. Round 4, offensive lineman Chandler Zavala. And then their last pick, round 5. So this is a team that's in a rebuilding mode, clearly. They traded up to get the number 1 overall pick. They only had 5 picks throughout the entire draft. And that last one, though, I really like. Jamie Robinson out of Florida State. A pretty versatile safety, can play in the nickel. I was hoping the Bucs could pick him up and use him at the position. But it was Carolina that scooped them up. Only a couple of picks before the Bucs were on the clock in the 5th round. So Panthers got a B+ out of Pro Football Focus. Obviously, the Bryce Young pick, gotta like that. Mingo, I was okay with him. Obviously, it wasn't the strongest of wide receiver classes overall. And so Mingo, I think round 2, maybe a little bit too early, but overall, I'm okay with it. DJ Johnson, didn't love that pick either. Felt like you could have got him a little bit later. But once again, appreciate Pro Football Focus for all their draft coverage. They had some great insight on all the picks that each team made, not just the NFC South, but really every single team out there. We'll read a little bit from NFL.com as well, starting with PFF. Let me pull it up here. I don't know how you guys are, but like sometimes you just have like so many tabs open. You can't, you can only like keep so many open at once and then you're scrambling all over the place. I just pulled it up. I'll get to a couple comments first. Wayne Hankinson says, Tucker looks good on tape. Yeah, his highlight tape is pretty fun. His vision is fantastic. He's got enough explosiveness, maybe not necessarily a home run hitter, but he will find the lane as quickly as he possibly can. I think that'll be important. And the reason that he was an undrafted free agent is that he had a medical condition. So with his heart as well, which is clearly very serious. But hopefully he can recover from that by the time training camp gets started, and that'd be a huge pickup for the Bucs. Frank G says, I miss Tom Brady. I miss him too. Bucs obviously got a lot of national coverage when Tommy Boy was in town. Richie P also says, I like that baggage over the Jeremy Banks, just saying. I don't totally understand that comment, Richie. Felix says, Bryce Young will get eaten by our new defensive line. Bucs trying to get quicker. Grace Point says the Panthers knew what they were doing. Blinkus with a very nice comment. Happy to see your face, Matt. Looking good. Thank you. Yeah, the scar is getting better. Not 100%, but appreciate the kind words. And then Grizz says, I think the Saints draft was pretty cheeks overall. Panthers and Falcons draft looked okay to me. I will agree with that. I don't want to jump the gun here. I do think the Saints draft was the worst out of the NFC South, without question. But let's get into what PFF said about the Panthers draft. One more time, Bryce Young with the first pick, Jonathan Mingo, round 2, DJ Johnson, an edge rusher out of Oregon, round 3, Chandler Zavala from NC State, a guard in round 4, and Jamie Robinson in round 5. Carolina moved up to number 1 overall, secured their potential franchise quarterback despite concerns about his size. Young was the top QB on the PFF big board. He had a 92.9 passing grade. Talking about Mingo, they say Mingo was one of the biggest risers in the pre-draft process and finds himself in Carolina to team up with Bryce Young. While his production in college was spotty, he has a good blend of size and athleticism to like his fit where he'd fit in with the Panthers. Not to mention he flashed off and on tape between unbelievable body adjustment and clean wins at the line of scrimmage. He was a 4-star recruit out of Brandon High School, first-team All-State his senior year. He started all 13 games in 2022. This is some more info about Mingo. Tied for the team lead with 5 receiving touchdowns. He had 861 receiving yards on the season. He set a school record, this is from Panthers.com, set a school record with 247 receiving yards against Vanderbilt. That's just absolutely insane. PFF goes on to say that the Panthers invested in their offensive line over the last several seasons, and they did it again with Zavala in the 3rd round. He played over 1,000 snaps at the FBS level, but earned an 86.5 PFF grade as a pass blocker, and he adds explosiveness to the interior offensive line. And then they go on to talk about some of their other picks as well. See what NFL.com had to say. NFL.com, while PFF gave them a B+, NFL.com gave them just a B. We go on to say, Young was the best quarterback in the draft, so the team's bowl trade for the number 1 overall pick has a real good chance to succeed. Mingo was excellent value in the 2nd round, and Johnson could blossom as an edge rusher in time. Carolina sent a 3rd-round pick to New England last year to pick quarterback Matt Corral, which has not paid off thus far. Panthers only had 2 Saturday picks due to trades. Talking about Robinson, Jamie Robinson. Robinson's instincts and agility will earn him playing time as a rookie. So, yeah, looking at the Panthers draft overall, Bryce Young, obviously best quarterback on the board. Don't hate that. Really like Jamie Robinson's pick in the 5th round. Mingo, I'm okay with. Really just Johnson that I felt, has potential to be explosive. I think kind of like Yaya Diaby was a little bit of a reach, but that's what it was for the Panthers draft. Ty Freeman said Banks was ranked 27th. Christopher Cole, who was the last Alabama QB to do anything? Joe Willie Namath. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I'm trying to think. Bama QBs haven't really worked out at the NFL level. Well, Jalen Hurts. I'm curious to get the Pewter people's opinion as well. Where does Jalen Hurts? Does he count as a Bama guy? Like, can Bama fans claim Jalen Hurts? That's what I need to know. Because he played a lot of his career there, but then he ended it with Oklahoma because Tua came in. If Bama wants to claim Jalen Hurts, we can have that argument for another day. I just feel he would fall into that category, though, if he does. Okay, he was a Bama guy. Tua, when healthy last season, looked great. I just don't know how early and often that he can stay healthy. Outside of that, Greg McElroy didn't do anything. A.J. McCarron didn't do anything. It's been a long time since Bama quarterbacks really proved something in the NFL. You got Joe Willie Namath, and we'll see what's up with Jalen Hurts. But, yeah, you do have a point. I feel the same way with USC quarterbacks too. And we'll see what's up with Caleb Williams. It sounds like he's going to be the top quarterback off the board next year. But like Carson Palmer really was the exception to the rule when you look at it. Won a Heisman, had a pretty good career with the Bengals, and then ended up going to the Cardinals and the Raiders for a little bit. Bengals obviously couldn't win a playoff game once they made the postseason, but Palmer was a pretty good quarterback. But you look at the rest of the group. Mark Sanchez, the Sanchez, first 2 years of his career, got to the AFC Championship game, but I could be the first one to tell you that wasn't because of the Sanchez. That was from the Jets' defense. That was from their run game and their fantastic offensive line. Matt Leinart didn't do anything in the NFL. John David Booty, Matt Barkley. So, yeah, USC kind of falls into that category as well. So USC and to a degree Alabama quarterbacks may not have panned out. But one thing that always pans out is when you're drinking a Celsius energy drink. That's right. Make Celsius your number one pick. There is no sugar and no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product. So if you want to find out where to get one at your local Walmart, Target, convenience store, or your bodega, I'm going to stop by a bodega in a little bit, pick up a Celsius because I am in New York. The city of New York right now. So I'm going to hit up a bodega and make sure I get it. Just go to the Celsius website, punch in your address and or location, and it'll let you know where to find one as soon as possible. So check out all the great flavors that Celsius has to offer, and just make sure you're drinking a Celsius energy drink, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Let's see. Grizz says, Matt Castle was serviceable for a guy who played like 10 snaps in college. Richie P says, Matt, you're like Hall of Fame Ozzie Smith today, covering the chat and NFC South review like the Oz. I really appreciate that, Richie. Sometimes it's tough to go solo dolo. Again, I didn't plan for it this way, so I apologize if people were hoping to see a couple other Pewter reporters. We try to do the majority of the shows with a separate co-host or two. Sometimes it didn't work out. Like I said, we had a last-minute cancellation. So this is what we're rolling with. But appreciate the kind words, Richie. You're the man. Blinka says, yep, Matt doing his thing. Thank you very much as well. Grace Point says, Matt, Ohio State also falls into that category. I don't think their QBs have worked out. I'm trying to think of the Ohio State quarterbacks over the past couple of seasons. Obviously, Justin Field with the Bears, and we'll see what happens with C.J. Stroud this year. I would really have to look back on it. Like, how many quarterbacks were considered, top profile, high level quarterbacks as well? I think that's important because not every Ohio State quarterback coming out was set to be like the top guy. But let's keep it moving. We'll talk about the Atlanta Falcons right now. They obviously have the most polarizing selection, as Nathan says. Matt, you keep it up. That working, carry the team. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it. I love all the Pewter people. You guys are fantastic. So they started off with Bijan Robinson out of Texas in the first round. Then round two went with Syracuse offensive lineman Matthew Bergeron. That was someone that the Bucs were talking about. Scott Reynolds specifically was talking about him during the Bucs day 2 draft preview when they didn't go with the main 4 offensive tackles off the board. Emily Campa says, you're doing a great job, Matt. We can't go wrong with Scarface. Yeah, feel free to call me Scarface Matty, but Emily, thank you so much. JC, great to see you, man. Says, sup, Matty, sup, chat. JC in the mix. But where was I? Yeah, so Bijan Robinson, obviously, Falcons were all about the rushing attack last season. ended up having Tyler Algier, who was a late round draft pick in 2022, got over 1,000 yards, even more explosive now. Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse in round 2. Ohio State edge rusher Zachary Harrison in round 3. Clark Phillips, the cornerback from Utah in round 4. And then they had a couple of 7th round picks. DeMarco Hellams from Alabama, whose highlight tape is pretty fun to watch. I'm actually surprised he dropped all the way to the 7th pick. And then South Carolina guard and center Javon Gwynn, another interior offensive lineman. I'm curious when you guys think whose draft class you liked more, the Panthers or the Falcons. Again, the Falcons was Bijan Robinson, Matthew Bergeron, Zach Harrison, Clark Phillips, DeMarco Hellams, and Javon Gwynn, the offensive lineman. Grace Point says JC should be the second host. Yeah, we're going to get JC on again very soon. He's a busy guy and a family man as well. But, JC obviously is always welcome on this show. Let's get to what PFF had to say with the Falcons, who they gave a B+ with their grade. On day 1, they said teams wouldn't usually receive an average grade for taking a running back in the top 10, but it's hard to dislike this pick too much, given how good Bijan Robinson was in 2022. An impressive athlete at 220 pounds. He set a PFF record with 104 missed tackles forced in 2022, producing a 95.3 PFF grade. For day 2, talking about Bergeron, he's a nimble tackle with a very in-control play style. He played significant time at both tackle spots for Syracuse, but could kick inside to guard for Atlanta. Obviously, Atlanta had a lot of issues outside of Chris Lindstrom on the interior offensive line. So we'll see how much that they can improve this time around. Day 3, talking about Clark Phillips. He's undersized and below average athlete. That's not a great combination, and that's why he slid to this point of the draft. However, Clark is a physical savvy coverage defender who can compete for a role in the slot with Atlanta. Helms is a stout defender, earning an 86.8 grade in 2022. Yeah, I like that pick of Helms in the 7th round. If you're going to go with the safety, can't go wrong there. And then Gwynn is an undersized guard who put up 34 reps on the bench press and earned a very respectable 76 pass blocking grade in 2022. He's an interesting fit. So the Bijan, I like. Yeah, Chill Will says, "Where's Casey?" Casey is maybe even more busy than JC, as JC says. Casey's been covering the Lightning, doing a fantastic job. We love and miss Casey for sure, but she is absolutely awesome. Richie says that he likes the Falcons draft. Listen, I like Bijan, the running back. I just don't know about Bijan in the first round when you just took a running back last year. I understand he's all world. He's all different. This guy can change the game in the NFL. But let me ask you, what about Saquon Barkley? What did he do that was so different? He was a great running back. Giants didn't win their first playoff game until last year. Derrick Henry, the Titans are trying to trade him this year. They had a great run a couple seasons ago, going to the AFC Championship game. Didn't even reach the Super Bowl. Great running backs just don't move the needle for me specifically. They're fun. They're exciting. I think if the Bucs, if this was the 2021 season, I'd be like, yeah, go and pick Bijan Robinson. They would have had a much later draft pick that year. But Bijan, the Falcons, they're playing to their strength, so I can't fault them for that. I just think with a lot of the Falcons did address a lot in free agency, as JC says. Love Bijan, the running back. Hate him as a top 10 pick. JC, I'm in full agreement. I don't hate the player. I hate the game in this sense, as they like to say. Bijan's extremely talented. I'm excited to watch him when he's not going up against the Bucs. The Bergeron pick, I'm okay with. Obviously, kind of linked to the Bucs. Falcons needed to beef up that offensive line, which they obviously did. And we'll see what's up with Harrison. I don't really love the 3rd round picks of really any team in the NFC South, whether it was Yaya, DJ Johnson, Harrison, or the Saints went with Kendre Miller. And Miller falls into the Bijan category. I like Kendre Miller. I don't necessarily love him in the 3rd round when there was a lot of running backs to get to. And the Saints obviously had a lot to address as well. So let's see what NFL.com had to say about the Falcons before we move over to the Saints. See if I can pull them up. Yeah, so the Falcons got an A-. They say the multifaceted Robinson was the best value available for a team trying to build an elite offense. Trading up for Bergeron made sense because of his guard tackle versatility, and Harrison fits as a long, strong base end. Phillips is small but tenacious. He'll flourish in the slot for the Falcons from day one. They picked up a downhill safety in Helms and short but ferocious center guard in Gwynn. Signing free agent receiver should be a priority for Atlanta after the draft. Interested to see. I think Atlanta is probably, we'll see what's up with the Saints, but Atlanta could be a threat to the Bucs this year. And the NFC South, in my opinion, is very much wide open, but don't sleep on Atlanta this year. Mark Fisher says, yo, Matt, love getting off so I can listen live. Mark, thank you for joining us. You're always a consistent commenter in the chats and, of course, a frequent contributor and donator to the site as well. Grace Point says the Saints are just disgusting. They don't like us. We don't like them. That is true. There is definitely bad blood. Shout out Taylor Swift. There is definitely bad blood between the Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's get into the Saints draft. Their first round pick was Brian. I apologize. I keep getting his name wrong. I don't know if it's Brees or Breesy, but the Clemson defensive player. He was their first overall pick when they were on the clock. Let me pull up Nolans here. He was their first pick. Second round, Isaiah Foskey. Round 3, Kendre Miller out of TCU, the running back. Fourth round, Old Dominion offensive tackle Nick Saldiveri. And then also round 4, Fresno State quarterback Jake Hayner. Round 5, Minnesota safety Jordan Howden. And then round 6, wide receiver A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. Don't mind the A.T. Perry pick. I thought that was all right. But, man, Breesy, one of the higher-rated defensive tackles in the class. I would take Kalijah Cansey over him. I don't think there's much of a discussion when it gets to that. Going in round 2, Foskey. I would put Foskey on the same level as Yaya Diaby in the third round. Saw Foskey up close and personal at the Senior Bowl. As Grace Point says, Foskey was a big reach. I don't understand that pick. I don't really understand it either, Grace Point. I think you could have waited another round to get him. Didn't think he was anything special at the Senior Bowl. I don't think he was terrible by any means, but DeJuan Jones, the Ohio State offensive tackle that fell pretty hard in the draft, had some really good pancake blocks on him in one-on-one pass rushing as well, which is, I think, even tougher to do than when you're lining up 11 on 11. And Foskey was, kind of billed as the top edge rusher, one of the top defensive players going into the Senior Bowl. And I just was not impressed from what I saw when he was being held up in high regard like that. Aaron Lemaster says, I think I would rather have Diaby than Foskey. The Ohio State tackle shut him down. He absolutely did. DeJuan Jones was great. Mark Fisher says, Canty and JTS or White versus Robinson. Advantage Atlanta? That's a good question. Robinson's going to try to take advantage of, the over pursuing of Devin White, but you also got to remember, you're talking about Rachaad White. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to give the credit. Which players are you talking about, Mark? When it comes to White, are you talking about Rachaad White and you're comparing running backs, or Devin White trying to cover Bijan Robinson both in the passing game and in the run game? You're talking about Devin White. Yeah, Devin's going to over pursue, I think, a little bit. He struggled stopping the run last year, but I think with this new and improved defensive line, that's obviously going to, and the Bucs built a lot of speed to stick with Bijan Robinson, obviously with Kalijah Cansey. And, Logan Hall is quicker than Will Golston at this point. Will Golston's not even on the team at the moment, but if Will does get re-signed, I still think Logan Hall should get a lot of playing time. Nathan says that JTS is terrible angles. I think JTS, is a little bit better stopping the run than he gets credit for. I know Josh Capo would speak to that. But yeah, round 3, Saints go with Kendre Miller. Again, very exciting player. A lot of people had him as RB3. But again, in the 3rd round, I just don't see that. And it's still crazy to me. After Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs went 12th overall. Saldivari in the 4th round. Jake Haener in round 4 makes absolutely no sense. Unless they just want a Drew Brees lookalike in terms of the height and the fact that he wears number 9, which he's not going to be wearing number 9 in New Orleans. I don't understand that pick at all. This was not a great quarterback class after the initial guys of Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. After that, there was a significant drop-off, and it was crazy to me that not only did Jake Haener go in the 4th round, but there was a number of quarterbacks that got drafted in round 4. I believe the Purdue quarterback got drafted there. The Georgia quarterback as well, Stetson Bennett, goes to the Rams. That's a really interesting one. Thomas Robinson at UCLA. His first name is escaping me at the moment. But yeah, there were a lot of quarterbacks that went in round 4. Nothing about Haener impressed me. Obviously, he can sling it down the field and had a lot of stats during his Fresno State days. But man, I don't know. I thought that was a reach, especially when you have another Fresno State quarterback, Derek Carr, who just signed this big deal to be your quarterback for multiple years to come. I thought that was certainly a little bit surprising by the New Orleans Saints with that pick. He was first team All-Mountain West in 2022, started 10 games, missed 4 with an ankle injury. He had 9,013 passing yards. That's a 4th all-time at Fresno State. So could definitely throw the rock around, but did not like that pick whatsoever. Did like the A.T. Perry pick in the 6th round. Jordan Howden, just trying to find another safety, another defensive player there. But yeah, not a fan of the Saints draft. They by far got the worst grades out of all the groups. PFF gave them a B-. Sports Illustrated gave them a B. NFL.com gave them a B+. So a little bit of a better rating there. Richie P says, in my opinion, Cansey's work ethic will surpass Jalen Carter in the long run, making him a better choice of the Georgia defensive tackle. That remains to be seen, but that's a pretty bold statement, Richie P. Pretty bold to say the least. Grace Point says, I think he might be a quality backup. Let's get to a couple of the readings from PFF and NFL.com. For day 1, talking about the Clemson defensive tackle, talented player on the defensive interior. He's coming off a season where he posted a career-high 82 grade for pass rushing. He can play across multiple spots in the interior and even has some experience playing outside the tackles. For day 2, Foskey has the size and athletic profile that New Orleans tends to covet on the edge. He uses a 34-plus-inch arms well to keep himself clean, but never dominated as a pass rusher at Notre Dame, like his sack numbers might indicate. Talking about Miller, he was remarkably productive at TCU, averaging over 6.5 yards per carry over the last 2 seasons, 6.5 yards per rush, earned 88.5 rushing grade and 470 missed tackles. My issue with Miller, again, very talented, maybe could have got him after round 3, but you got Alvin Kamara there. And, if Kamara misses some times, then yeah, I get the pick. But, Kamara is usually the top dog there. So that was some of the analysis for day 1 and day 2 on NFL.com. Let's see what else they had to say before we go to NFL.com. Saldivari, this is the offensive lineman. Saldivari earned an 85.1 pass blocking grade in 2022 at tackle, but likely moves inside to guard. Both starting guards in New Orleans are entering contract years. If the Saints decline the 5th-year option on 2020 first-round pick Cesar Ruiz. Saldivari was a late riser who generated a ton of buzz over the last few weeks, and New Orleans felt it was necessary to trade up to ensure it got him. Saints gave up 2024 4th-round pick to move all the way up to 27 and pick Fresno State quarterback Haener. Talking about Perry, his consistency left something to be desired at Wake Forest, but this is great value for the Saints in round 6. talking about Howden earned an 80.6 coverage grade with an 18.4% forced incompletion rate. Forsyth played 805 snaps in 2022, producing a 72 grade. Real quick, let's just get to NFL.com, what they had to say about the Saints. Thought they gave the Saints a B+. Gotta go to the bottom. New Orleans. Yeah, so they say the Saints should have had a top 10 pick this year, but it was sent to the Eagles as part of that trade at last year's draft. They took a reasonable risk late in the first, a pick they received from the Sean Payton deal. Brees's medical issues are behind him. Foskey is their type of powerful base end. Though Keon White was still on the board, Miller was a wise pick. Talking about Kendry Miller, his open field burst could lead to explosive plays. Saldivari fills the Saints' need for an athletic interior lineman, but I thought he could go in round 3. Haener was the perfect selection as an efficient backup for Derek Carr with starter potential, so giving up a 7th rounder this year and a 2024 4th-round pick made sense. Safety was on their needs list too, and Howden made himself into a draftable player this season, sending tight end Adam Troutman to Denver to get a downfield threat, and Perry benefited both parties. So that is the write-up from PFF and NFL.com on the Saints pick. I still don't think it was that good. One thing I think is not good, but great, are all the flavors of Celsius. You got the Arctic peach and tropical vibes. Can't go wrong with a peach mango, a sparkling orange, sparkling watermelon, Fuji apple pear, sparkling kiwi guava, strawberry lemon lime, sparkling strawberry lemon lime. I've been having a lot lately. If you want to buy it in bulk because you want to try out all the different flavors, get the variety pack on Amazon because variety is the spice of life. Do the subscribe and save at Amazon. Have it sent to your house or apartment every week, month, quarterly, yearly if you want. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius Energy Drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. You know, we love our Celsius Energy Drinks. Can't wait to have one sooner rather than later. Before we wrap up the show, let's get to a couple more comments. Caleb Clemens says, I just placed the Saints cover in. I don't understand this comment, but appreciate you watching the show and commenting. Wayne Haskins says, Bucs should do great against a weak division. Yeah, so I truly, truly think that the Bucs have the best draft out of the NFC South. Without question. I mean, the grades speak to it too. Obviously, it's all opinion, but I think the Bucs did a fantastic job with what they had in front of them, trying to find the value, not having a 4th-round pick either, but they were able to really address a lot of the areas that they want to go to. I would put, I like the Panthers draft. So few picks. I put the Panthers and the Falcons on the same level. Maybe do the Falcons and then the Panthers after, and then the Saints riding the caboose as the last pick for the Bucs draft class, the NFC South draft class in this year's group. But yeah, I do think that the NFC South is very wide open. Each team made some moves that make you go, all right, there's something to work with here. Obviously, the Saints with their quarterback, Panthers with their quarterback as well. Falcons did a lot on the defensive side of the ball this year that they needed to shore up and added another weapon on the offensive side of the ball. And then the Bucs found a lot of value, whether it was signing Ryan Neal, whether it was bringing back Jamel Dean. You know, Matt Filer is a good depth piece. And then this draft class, Cansey going to make some noise. Cody Mock as well. Payne Durham, I think, can be helpful. Trey Palmer, watch out for him. So a lot of great options for the Bucs, really finding that value, as Mark Fisher says. Wild to think we might have a better record without Brady than we had with him, talking about last season. And that comes down to offensive coordinator Dave Canales. As Grizz says, Canales has to deliver on offense. I think the mix-up in offense is going to be super important. Richie P says, wonder why Canales didn't do an interview this week. Oh, guys, just so you know, when we spoke to the defensive coaches the other day, it was just defensive coaches and special teams. It was not offensive coaches. Next Wednesday coming up, Next Wednesday is when we speak to the offensive coaches. So we will for sure talk to Dave Canales then. So that's the only reason why we didn't get to speak to Dave Canales. We will be talking to him soon. Grace Point says, Matt, I know this is off topic, but how would you grade the Jets draft? I would give them a C+. A C+, maybe an 80, 81 for a B. I think they want an offensive tackle, but then the Steelers traded in front to go get Broderick Jones. I don't think they wanted Will McDonald, but McDonald is crazy athletic. I like the pick of Tippmann. I wish they would have got another offensive weapon for Aaron Rodgers. I know they drafted a tight end later, but I think I would have liked something a little bit earlier. So overall, it's a C+. I think they're clearly in win now mode because they traded for Aaron Rodgers. So I would have liked for them to address this year's team and not look too much into the future. Grizz says, I'm hoping that Canales is more than the CW sitcom looks and energetic pep talk. Yeah, he's a high octane guy, super personable, super energetic, and I think he's going to mesh well with a lot of the guys on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of the veterans there. And we'll see if he can get the best out of Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. It's going to be an awesome competition to watch this year. And if you're not already watching, would absolutely love if you guys watched our clips on Pewter Report's YouTube channel. And please follow us on social media at Pewter Report on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then on YouTube, it is Pewter Report TV. We got a ton of content out, much more to come throughout the rest of the week and next week. And, each week that we talk about the Buccaneers. But that's going to do it for us on today's show. Had a great time interacting with all the Pewter people that were watching it. I really appreciate you guys tuning in and joining me on today's show. Got a big week coming up next week. We'll figure out some topics, but Wednesday we talk to the offensive coaches, and then on May 11th, the NFL schedule comes out, so we're going to be talking a lot about that as well. So until then, thank you to all the Pewter people. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby or whatever else you got going on this weekend. We will see you next week for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out. Have a great weekend.